Greetings everyone, and welcome to Anime Night in the Dojo. Today's featured show, Frieren, Beyond Journey's End, Season 2.
I got Frieren, Season 2, Episode 10, final episode of this season. Welcome back to the dojo. I'm Ryu. It's Age. We're back for more Anime Night in the Dojo. And well, TLDR, if you haven't watched any of our stuff this week, while we haven't been around, Age's upload was from 1995 for a couple weeks, so didn't do anything with it. So we're back, hopefully without problems, finishing this up this week. This set of shows next week, and then the plan for the spring season, which already got kind of annihilated by the fact that there are a bunch of 2-core things that we were interested in, but 2-core stuff wouldn't work because of what's going on in the summer, so we needed 1-core stuff, and then JoJo's decided to put out one episode and then say, catch you guys in the fall. All right, so we're just going to be doing 2 Slimes and 2 ReZeros until the summer season. And with Slime, that's a 5-core thing, so that's going to be the holding down Monday for however many cores in a row we get. We're getting bare minimum 2 starts.
Yeah.
So, yeah, it's going to be Slime on Mondays for a while, but so that's how we're going to play catch up to the summer season. So luckily it's not the summer season yet. But as for Frieren, last time we had, going after Himmel's memoirs, had to wait around for the lake to not be in winter. That was interesting. We got to talk about like inland lakes and their size and stuff, so that was kind of fun. And we got left on the stinger that Frieren used her new spell to not get tripped up in tongue twisters while she was getting grabbed by a kraken. So I don't know if we're just gonna pick up right from there, or we're just gonna cut right to Makoto cooking the damn thing. You know what I mean?
I know, which once again, Revolte might have given her some trouble, but the only time, if he had actually fought her, but the only time Frieren herself has actually been in danger this entire season was the cave where you can't use mana.
Right, that place. So either way, again, just quick here at the beginning, it's been a very good season, even if it's more of a down season. Anybody who knows the source material knows that the Golden Land arc is coming. That's like the major arc for this entire series. So everybody's looking forward to that. That'll be coming, I believe, early next year, so we don't have to wait too long. It's definitely next year, so yeah. But short season, but it still had some memorable moments, and it was still Frieren, and it's been very good. So that being said, people on Patreon will see you on the other side of the edit for the timer reaction. If you guys are interested in checking that out, it's gonna be down there in the description. Link to the Patreon, link to the video itself. It's all free. I'm not charging. It's just a way to not have to put 2 things on YouTube a week. That's the only reason I have it like that. So either way, and we'll see everybody else on the other side for the discussion and review back on YouTube and beyond. So there goes something. Well, alrighty then, there you guys have it. Another season of Frieren is in the books, while this one was shorter. The last season was 28, so we got a weird number of Frieren. That is what it is. We just talked about at the end of the reaction there that, you adapt for the arcs and where it makes sense to stop. And if where it makes sense to stop, that's where it makes sense to stop. Not everything can be the nice little 12, 13 episode package. You know what I mean? So that is what it is. Or you could just, go full MF Ghost and just end the season in the middle of a race and pick up the next season in the middle of that same race. It's not really that big of a deal. So either way, as for this episode, interesting topography, more just interesting stuff with the world. A canyon that has been cut by a river that makes the Grand Canyon look friggin' tiny, because this is 9,000 feet. You know what I mean? 3,000 meters. So yeah, you're not gonna want to fall off that. You're gonna be falling for a while. You know what I mean? So we even got that shot of the coastline where there were clouds below the freaking, below the cliff line. So it's like, well, when you scale a mountain, except this is cliffs. So definitely an interesting place. So we had that. We had the whole classic. Anybody who played the the OG Final Fantasy VII knows exactly what I'm talking about when you're trying to cross in the crater and you have to dodge the wind. They didn't want to use flight magic because then they get carried by the wind. So that's saying something considering how powerful they are mage-wise, that they don't want to get hit by these gusts of wind. Which, well, generally speaking, any kind of wind in any kind of corridor, it happens in cities, New York skyline, stuff like that, man-made corridors that they showed it off a couple times in like the Spider-Man movies where it's like, that doesn't happen. Do you want to bet? Ask some window cleaners about wind and stuff like that for those kind of buildings. That kind of stuff is spooky as hell. So yeah, that's not something you want to mess with. So that was definitely interesting that they went into that for this, even with magic involved.
Yeah, that was part of why they didn't cross the lake either, was because of the storms and wind.
Right.
Also, yeah, for context, you brought up Grand Canyon as a example. The Grand Canyon at its deepest is 6,000 feet.
Yeah. So, just to drop another third of the Grand Canyon down, a couple million more years and maybe the Grand Canyon will be like that. So, either way, definitely a very interesting locale. The Northern Plateau is definitely one hell of a place. And, well, sometimes you just have dwarves building stuff. Because why not? You would look at this and think, oh, that bridge isn't going that far. That's not that far of a gap. How could it possibly have taken this guy 200 years to do this? Well, let me tell you how you can't work in certain weather conditions. Look at where they're at.
Yeah, he's working in the Northern Plateau, which we know has harsh weather, over a 9,000-foot canyon that has massive winds that he has to work around. He has to reinforce most, if not all, of that 9,000 foot of canyon wall to support the bridge and not be eroded away. Because once again, he's trying to make a bridge that will last at least 1,000 years.
Yep.
That bridge itself is designed to be an extremely sturdy bridge to deal with the wind.
Like he
He's
pointed
working
out
on it himself most of the time.
Yeah, like he pointed out, like somebody with a wagon was able to cross it. Well, before they got blown off by the creatures, which, oh boy. But yeah, just you can see it here where some of the reinforcement is. It's not just there. This kind of project is, if you know anything about, just construction and just anything like that. I don't know a ton about it, but I do know that it's not just, it's just this bridge. Like Age was saying, the reinforcement for this kind of thing to combat erosion, to deal with reinforcing it so it functions, it's more than just putting a couple bricks down on either side and calling it a day for foundation.
Yeah, no, he's going to have put braces down all along the wall. Like, it doesn't necessarily have to be straight brick the entire way. That'd probably add another 100 years of him working. But at very least, it needs to have structural bracing every set amount of distance all the way down.
Yep. So, once again, outside of the pancake crew, which is what I'm going to call them, he was doing it himself for all those years until they showed up, you know what I mean? And then they helped him for what looked like a couple seasons, and then they went and founded that village.
Yeah, that was the big thing about this whole thing, was that Frieren expected the bridge to not be done yet. Because she was probably gauging it off of the fact that she hadn't heard rumors of the bridge being done yet. And the fact that it would probably have taken him longer to complete it. But apparently at some point between when Himmel and the crew came through here and now, he picked up adventurers who stuck around and formed that village and helped him out.
Yeah.
So it got done sooner.
Right. So, that was cool. I think that was a neat little just addition to the story. And we got another niche spell, which had to come from one of these adventurers here, or they had the tome or whatever. They had the grimoire of perfectly flipped pancakes.
Yeah, presumably it comes from this guy, because like he seems to be the mage of the party, and he's the one handing out the pancakes. So he presumably he knew the spell and he gave it to Gain.
Yeah, so that was definitely a thing. But as he pointed out too, was another thing that can delay construction is funding. Funding for it. That's basically all on you at that point then to potentially go get the wood, and just it becomes a passion project. You know what I mean? It's a lot easier with funding. You just go buy the lumber and whatever you need, and work it off, whatever. But if you're out of funding, you're cutting down trees somewhere and bringing it over here. You know what I mean? All on your own. You're doing it by yourself. Yeah, he's a dwarf. Seems like a solid craftsman, but something of even that length is going to take quite a while.
According to Frieren, he's like one of the best carpenters she knows.
Yeah. So once again, he was building a bridge to last 1,000 years, not like 20. So,
in an incredibly hostile environment.
Yeah, very hostile work environment, just in general. So this was a nice little story. This shot right here just kind of says it all. You look at this and go, that couldn't have possibly taken more than a couple years. Well, once again, it's not working on it 24/7. He's not working on it, for probably the snowy seasons. He's not working on it, when the wind is super bad, because, he's probably has to deal with the random monster attacks as well from time to time. So he's not going to be working on it then. There's probably a lot of downtime in those 200 years. You know what I mean? So, overall, it probably took him like a decade, maybe 20 years total, like of actual work time. You know what I mean? But it's all the downtime that gets you.
Yeah, the downtime would be a major killer, and like I said, the thing that probably took him the longest would have been reinforcing the cliff itself, so that he could even start building the bridge.
Right. So it's kind of an interesting, neat little story, something that, Frieren's very good at. We talked about that. So I appreciated this for what it was. We got another ridiculous spell. We got Frieren spending all their cash again. Big shock. You know what I mean? And then we end up in this adventurer town, which, another solid sequence. Something that's not discussed a lot in a lot of fantasy. Like the last thing that really worked with like money was that we've dealt with was Spice and Wolf and stuff like that in like different regions, having different pricing and trading and stuff like that. And well, when you're in a lucrative mining area and people are making more money, it's kind of like the difference between living in California and living in like Tennessee or something. You know what I mean?
Yeah,
Everything
people make more money.
People make more money, so you get charged more money proportionally based on region or whatever you're around. You know what I mean? So
especially since they're just like a camp in the middle of nowhere, so importing food and stuff like that is going to be more expensive, and so they're going to charge more for it.
Right. So that was kind of an interesting, just like aside to like economy based stuff, and I appreciated that for what it was. Monster hunting being more important, that kind of thing. Especially when you're taking on Fell's cousin over here. They didn't say what this thing was, but you could argue that it's Fenrir adjacent. You could call it a great wolf, not offend Fell, but this thing was some sort of mythical creature of some kind. So
yeah, and it had some form of mana reading abilities, so we got a second moonshot this season.
Yeah. So yeah, that was the gimmick with this fight again, was it could sense mana, so Fern had to get out of range and do another, or drop orbital laser, drop the Hammer of the Dawn, drop, Bahamut Zero, drop, whatever your favorite orbital laser shot is. Maybe it's the meme, I'm firing my laser guy from the Henry Stickmin collection. That's your favorite orbital laser. You know what I mean? Whatever it is, Fern got to do it again. So
yeah, this is the second moonshot this season, though the previous one was more of a sniper shot. This was full on orbital laser.
Yeah, this was literally just dropping it, and well, it was very spectacular, as you can see here. It's not going to kick up that much debris if it's not a very large beam. I mean, that's a very large Zoltrak shot there.
Yeah, which seems like going forward might be part of Fern's expanding specialty, because she's only been fundamental so far. She might turn into basically the sniper of the group, because she's quickly figuring out the best way to deal with opponents that can deal with that can sense mana. It's to just get out of range, because the big weakness to mana sensing is that mana sensing has a finite range to it.
Yep.
Doesn't matter how good you are at it, it can't go beyond a certain distance.
And just to clarify, they're sensing the spell cast, not the spell coming towards them. You know what I mean? So they're sensing the spellcaster casting in their range. They're not going to be able to sense unless they have an ability that can sense magic coming towards them. In this case,
also, the difference is they can sense the mana of the spell. The problem is just that Fern's spell is too fast.
Yeah.
The only reason why they can react to it and dodge it is because they sense her building up the mana to cast in the first place and dodge preemptively. It's like the difference between trying to dodge a bullet and dodging the gun.
Yeah.
Like, it's quite easy to predict where the gun is going to go and dodge the gun itself, compared to trying to dodge the bullet after it's already left the gun.
Yeah. So that is just the clarification for that. But we got the trading company showing up again, doing their thing. They cover a pretty large area, so that was something. But that's that. And well, they did it.
Well, the Order of Norn, they're the military force / guards of the entire northern region.
Yeah. So they kind of have to cover a pretty wide area, obviously. So just kind of all over the place. But they also have the benefit of having mounts. You know what I mean? Frieren and the crew don't have horses, so. What can I say about this sequence? Now 5 more minutes, 5 more hours. Been there. Sometimes you wake up at 8 a.m. and you're just like, nah, I'm sleeping till 1 p.m. That was a solid turn on that one. That was great. But either way, they had a nice little exposition here about the crystals, the site, that kind of thing, and how as time marches on, it's going to be mined out and whatnot. But what a twist! This man here is turning it into a national park.
Yeah, he's turning it into a freaking sanctuary / tourist attraction.
Pretty much. Which again, you could mine out these what do they call them? They call them snow crystal, the snowflake crystals,
Holy
something like
snow
that.
Crystals.
Yeah. You could mine those out and make a ton of money, like they said. Or you could keep that incredible formation there and have a natural preserve that, takes donations, or is, pay to get in, pay to see that, you know what I mean? And eventually you'll make more money than if you sold off the crystal. Which, Age mentioned it during the reaction there, that crystals, generally speaking, in fantasy grow back, so you could in theory just chip off some and let it come back. But
even in real life, depending on the type of crystal and the environment, the whole thing is that crystals do grow. Ore is fixed. This is just a mineral that is here. A crystal is a crystalline formation of minerals that forms over time as they are exposed to certain conditions, and they will regrow back if those conditions are still being met and they still have the supply of the mineral from, say, rainwater or things of that nature. Or in this case, since it's a fantasy world, these things probably feed off of mana and regrow.
Yeah.
So, if you have a big field like that, instead of just mining the entire field out, you could selectively mine bits and pieces out of it and let them regrow over time.
Right. But either way, they're preserving the view for future generations. That's definitely a thing. And once again, over time, even with the regrow stuff like that, maybe they have something set up a place where they just mine stuff every once in a while, that kind of thing. But at the end of the day, you'll make more money over the course of history if you just leave it as a preserve and make money off of tourists and stuff like that just want to see it. Just the one-off cash grab of selling off the crystals for the whatever they're worth. You know what I mean? So
it's freaking like in Civ. You can either leave that forest there for the +1 industry for the rest of the game, or you can chop it down for 80 industry now.
Yeah, right, exactly. So either way, it was another solid episode. We got to talk a little bit about Frieren's buying habits, and how at the end of the reaction age was talking about the whole thing that there's like this theory that Frieren is not just superfluously buying stuff. She is setting up for some sort of ritual that she saw when she was younger, potentially. So
yeah, in the like flashback arc, there's a bit more to it source material from what I know that was actually shown in the anime. But in the flashback arc, apparently, like they put a long emphasis on her like studying this one book from Philadelphia.
yeah.
That in the like what still you get of seeing the book itself, there's like some sort of big elaborate ritual on the page. And one of the key ingredients of the ritual is the evil dragon horn that we already saw that she has.
Yep.
And it's saving. And there's a few random things that kind of come up since then that most people are assuming at this point well, she is perfectly doing right just because she just likes collecting magic. But there is actually an annual to her collecting magic of whatever that ritual is supposed to be.
Right. So it'll be interesting to see if that happens, if we get any more of that during the Golden Land stuff next year or whatnot. Or more toward the end of the series, what have you. But at the end of the day, this was another solid episode, everything we'd come to expect from Frieren. And it would be about this time where we do a season wrap-up and talk about some of the stuff. But at the end of the day, and I mentioned this at the end of the reaction, and I went on a little tangent there, so see a tangent about people being fake, that's at the end of the Patreon video, is this show is just on that level of Age and I can watch it, enjoy it, talk about what we need to talk about, not have to worry about critiquing it, and just say, hey, Frieren did what Frieren does, and that's it. And this was another solid season of the show. There were a couple things that we could have nitpicked that we did kind of like offhandedly mention, just as like, hey, there was this thing, but we rarely mention any of those things anyway, because most of the time we just ignore it because we don't want to be negative for the sake of being negative, only if it's like a big deal. Like the Overlord stuff, or the Tanya stuff, or the Tokyo Avengers stuff. You know what I mean? So it's Faraway Paladin, freaking Guild Receptionist, that kind of stuff. The series that we have openly negatively reviewed because it was justified. We didn't do it because we wanted to. We did it because we had to, because we want to be as objective as possible. You know what I mean? All those things, as far as I'm concerned, were as objective as possible. We try to have as little bias as we can. If I really like, say, I really enjoyed Initial D and MF Ghost because I'm like a car guy and stuff like that. But when stuff is done wrong, I'm still going to point it out. We pointed out the differences between Initial D and MF Ghost, and how MF Ghost is a step up if a lot of people still have the rose-tinted glasses and claim that Initial D was the peak for that author. It's not. It's just not, so that I've had that discussion already. But for Frieren, it's just it's one of those shows that is it's the bar, and not everybody needs to hit the bar of Frieren to be good. You know what I mean? You don't have to be Frieren to be good, but it is just that summit of having something for pretty much everybody, and it does everything well, and the pacing, how every episode is paced, pointed out, the locales, the character development, not having too much of a batch cast, the characters that are only around for a little bit, they still leave an impact, like Methode, the demon generals, like we got Revolte this season. Even if we didn't get a huge amount on his character, he was still a fairly interesting, bad guy character or a demon general, what he had going on for him and stuff like that. So I assume the biggest, most written general will be the guy that's in the Golden Land that was alluded to here at the end, and the Stinger.
Not only is he the last one left, but apparently he was the strongest of the 7.
So this guy right here. So I assume he'll probably have the biggest like story buildup and stuff like that because of the arc and whatnot. But like I said, even Revolte, he was more than just a villain of the week. It felt like we got more out of him, that kind of thing. And once again, he was. We mentioned Fell in this episode. He was voiced by that same VA that does Fell from Campfire Cooking, and that VA has done a bunch of other stuff as well. But still, it's neat to see those characters and stuff like that. Yeah, human. Human. The second he said human, I was like, yep. So, but as for everything in this season, even it not being a full 12 episodes or 13 episodes full core, I don't feel like we were shortchanged. You know what I mean? A lot of times when you get a lower episode count, you feel like you're not getting everything that you'd expect out of a season, and it didn't feel like that here.
Yeah, I mean, once again, most of these episodes felt like 2 episodes.
Yeah, there were plenty of times that, like we talked about it in the season, where it's like, oh, that skit wasn't the whole episode. We get a whole other skit. That's how you know you're doing pacing right. Like I've referenced Steven Universe plenty of times where that show is in 10-minute increments. And when you watch the majority of Steven Universe, you look at it and you watch, 10 minutes and you go, that was a full episode, right? No, it was 10 minutes. And that's what Frieren does, is one skit feels like it could be a full episode, and then it's just one skit. You know what I mean? And then they do something else, which is great. Obviously, there are certain situations where there weren't 2 skits, like when Frieren was in the cave, paying off her debt to the corporation and stuff like that. That was an entire episode. But there are certain things like they went hunting for like the magical creature or whatever, and then they would do something else afterwards. You know what I mean? So there were a lot of dual skits that you could argue would have been, if they had somehow elongated it out to 20 minutes, that could have easily been a full episode by itself and nobody would have complained. Well, I can't say that. People probably would have complained somehow, but objectively speaking, there would have been nothing to complain about because it was a very full and rich episode in just that skit. So even if we didn't get 12, 13 episodes, it felt like we did get at least 15, 16 episodes worth of content. You know what I mean?
Yeah, no, Frieren is objectively worse than Ancient Maggot's Bride. You shouldn't even bother watching it.
Yeah, exactly. So, it is just one of those things. It's subjective assessment. You can absolutely like something more than something else, but just you have to be able to put yourself in a different pair of shoes when you're doing what we do, and a lot of people don't do that. Or they take things too seriously, like Age's previous statement. That was sarcasm. Okay? Just in case anybody who's wondering. Fucking around.
Yeah, no, the shows have similarities, but they are definitely aimed towards different things.
Yeah. They're completely different things, so... But again, we don't have like a huge like wrap up for the season like we usually do. We usually talk for like an extra like 15, 20 minutes, just talking about the overarching parts of the season and stuff like that. But Frieren's Frieren. It did everything I expected, everything I wanted. What would you expect from the show? It hit everything that you want from the show, and it was just great. Flawless? Of course not. Very few things are flawless, but the very tiny flaws that were here and there aren't worth mentioning ever. And, it doesn't take away from the enjoyment and greatness of the series, so what's the point of talking about it? I'm not saying it's flawless, but I'm saying that the very few minor flaws that it has aren't worth talking about because they doesn't take away from the enjoyment of the series. It's not Neelix handing the Doctor a datapad to offend somebody. So, what's the point?
I will say, yeah, I will say, the only, actual problem I have with Frieren still isn't even, a big problem. It's I do feel like they could put better animation and emphasis on the fight scenes when they happened.
Right.
It's fine as it is. But I feel like if they went Kobayashi on it, where fight scenes don't happen very often, but when they do happen, they really focus on actually making it look as spectacly and as cool as they can.
Right. And you might be able to argue that they might be saving a lot of their resources for the Golden Land arc, potentially. And once again, like Age mentioned, you could look at some of the action sequences in this season and like point out some stuff, but once again, it doesn't really bother me because I know potentially, so I don't care. And it shouldn't really matter.
It's fine, but that's like the one thing that I could definitely point at and say they could have done better on.
Yeah, but most of us know where the industry is at right now, and why some certain corners might have been cut, even in a series like this. You know what I mean? So I always take that with a grain of salt. Of like, well, at least it's not freaking Jujutsu Kaisen season 2. Just saying. So it could be worse. So hopefully the industry just gets better about giving people time and just letting them do their thing and not having to cut corners and whatnot. So, but they still had time to edit in that meme face. Don't tell me that they didn't have time to put 2 frames in an edit, because that doesn't take as long as people thought it would. You know what I mean?
I didn't see which game it was, but apparently just recently it was like some baseball game or something. Someone went in full Frieren cosplay, but they deliberately messed with like the makeup to do the actual looking up face.
Yeah. There's been a lot of that stuff going around, like the Frieren meme, and then the the jujutsu, that thing.
The Naoya flipping his hair.
Yeah, the Naoya flipping his hair thing is like all over the place. People doing it.
It's fucking, they did it like 3 times in the 4.2 frigging like teaser animated video for Star Rail.
Yep, it'll probably be coming to another Hoyo game near you at some point. Probably be a character in ZZZ that does it as part of their ultimate or something. Maybe Lady Sunbringer will do that to somebody or something in one of the cinematics. But either way, Frieren was great. I'm losing my voice, so I gotta stop. So, everybody, once again, Frieren was fantastic. No notes. Keep it up. One of the best series in recent memory. And looking forward to the next season. Golden Land is apparently a super big deal. The biggest part of the series, arguably, potentially. And that's coming next year. We don't have to wait too long. I believe it's early next year, like spring next year. So somewhere around the same time as this one started. Though this one started in January, so I don't know if it's that early, but I know it's I think it's like quarter 1 next year as we speak right now. Maybe it gets pushed back, I don't know, but the last time I checked it was like late quarter 1 next year, so around March or April. So we don't have to wait too long for Golden Land, so that's very cool. So looking forward to that, and that's all I got for that. Just big thumbs up, and it was a pleasure. It was a true pleasure. Anything else, Adrian?
I don't know. There was a lot of attention to detail, a lot of just everything in this season. Like, even if the main story wasn't really present, still, it was a good season.
Yeah. Anyway, without having to rehash everything we've already talked about, if you want to check that out, just go check out our other review videos from the season, and that pretty much sums it up. So you don't have to go back, rehash everything, point out stuff, and just kind of look at the season on the whole, because it wrapped up quite nicely. So, and with a very interesting stinger that we made the joke about. So even if that only happens for an episode, that'd be funny as hell to me. And I'm just a guy who loves comedy. So even if it's only for like 20 seconds, even if it's funny as hell, if he was the main character and it was just like, yeah, following him now.
But my number one thing that I expect out of the Golden Land arc is at some point or another we need Dankin to go face again.
Right, exactly. he needs
to put those he needs to put his off-class levels in fighter to use again.
Yep. So that could be fun. Just full-on punch mage. So anyway, ladies and gentlemen, people of YouTube, beyond heavy watching, as always, we appreciate you stopping by and hanging with us here in the dojo for more Anime Night. This was Frieren, Season 2, Episode 10. Just 10-episode season. That's what it was. Next week, we'll be wrapping up our other 3 shows. 2 episodes of Fire Force, and 2 episodes of MF Ghost. So we'll have 1 extra thing next week just so we can wrap up and start the spring stuff, which once again will be double features of Slime and double features of ReZero until summer so we can catch up. So that's where we're at. Going to be different, but I don't think it'll be too bad because Slime's one of my favorite shows of all time, so I don't have a problem watching 2 of those a week, and it's not really binge if you're only doing 2. You know what I mean? It's not too bad. It's basically like doing a double length every week. We've done that with like Peacemaker and whatnot, so it's not too bad. So
I mean, also, ReZero has a tendency to do a lot of double length episodes.
yeah, so shouldn't be too bad. But anyway, people at Patreon or of YouTube Beyond, we'll be back with more Frieren when it comes back next year. So yeah, but anyway, that being said, have a good morning, evening, afternoon, whatever it is for you. Have a good one. See you next time.
Hey everyone, Victoria here. If you enjoyed the video, please consider pushing those like and subscribe buttons. Your support is greatly appreciated. Thanks again for your time, and we hope to see you again in the future.